I've been at this a long time, and there are things we know that work that reduce gun violence and violent crime, and things that we don't know about. But things we know about, background checks for purchasing a firearm are important. No one needs to have a weapon that can fire over 30, 40, 50, even up to 100 rounds, unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests or something. Those who say the blood of patriots, and all the stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you want to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. Police Chief Murray of the Police Chief Murphy, Paul of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Mayor Daniela. What do you think? The deer wearing Kevlar vest?
You got to accentuate the positive, elim. Mine hate the negative, don't mess with Mr. In Between.
Is there really any point breaking down what Joe Biden said in his big, we're going to take on gun violence by basically taking down gun dealers across America? I mean, is there really a need for me to break down why he can't do this constitutionally when he's already let us know exactly how he feels about the Constitution?
And no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
Again, I could point out the obvious when he and Governor Andrew Cuomo, the senior citizen killer over there in the People's Republic of New York, one of the straw man arguments they love to use is a magazine, a clip that holds the ammunition. And they love to say, you don't need any more than 10 rounds in a magazine. You don't need any more 10 rounds in a clip. Andrew Cuomo, it doesn't take 20 bullets to kill a deer. Joe Biden with his, what are the deer wearing, Kevlar, man? We don't have the Second Amendment so that you have the right to go deer hunting, turkey hunting, squirrel hunting. Second Amendment isn't about hunting. The Second Amendment is about tyranny. The Second Amendment is about making sure that the citizen has the ability to defend himself against a tyrannical, overreaching government, period. Remember who founded this country. Remember what they had been through. Remember the tyranny and overreach that they were dealing with, and remember who it was that pushed back at that time the greatest military on the planet. Farmers with pitchforks. The peasants of America. And they didn't have all of the armaments that the British military had, but what they had was, number one, a love of freedom. Number two, a love for, it was their land they were fighting for. It was literally their homes, their families, their future. They were committed and they wanted to be free. There's an old saying. It's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. I've seen little Chihuahua dogs make German Shepherds take a couple of steps back. When he goes into this analogy that if this is about, defending yourself against the government, man, you don't have what we've got. You don't have nukes. You don't have this. Wow. Really? So you would use nuclear weapons on American citizens, Mr. Biden? Is that what you're saying? Is that really what came out of your mouth? I realize we're dealing with somebody who can't always think everything through, And apparently lately, your earpiece is failing and you can't hear what you're being told. But what you said in that statement, and of course, no one in the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media jumped on it, got it, caught it, or said a thing about it. When you said that if the American citizen thinks that the Second Amendment is about defending himself against the government, well, you don't have access to what the government has, like nuclear weapons. So you're saying you would use nuclear weapons on American citizens. I seem to recall a year ago, last summer, right about this time, when all of the George Floyd protests were really just exploding literally across this country, when cities and municipalities were under siege, when policemen were bowing before rioters and asking them, please don't burn down the police station, and defund the police was the chant of the land, and we were seeing things going up in flames under the guise of a CNN. It's mostly a peaceful protest. And when President Trump insinuated he wanted to send troops into these hotspot areas to simply restore law and order and bring calm, immediately the media and the Democrats and drooling on himself, dementia-ridden Joe Obama Biden came out of his little bunker and said, what kind of a president would turn troops loose on the American people? Yet you're saying you would use nuclear weapons against the American people. Now, I realize that to follow your full thought train through requires a cognitive function you are completely and totally incapable of. Got that. But for the rest of us that are listening, keep in mind what we got now. We got a guy that said that, no amendments forever. No constitutional right is absolutely guaranteed. And let's not forget that his VP, Camilla, thinks she's a Hottie Harris. When she was a candidate, she was part of a CNN town hall meeting, and she was asked about gun control, etc. And she did say, we got this Second Amendment that kind of gets in the way, but there are things we can do, like regulate the gun dealers. Bum, ba-dum, bum. Making sure that every one of them dots every I, crosses every T, and if they don't, we'll yank their license. We've got all this violence breaking out across the country. And Joe Biden's going to go after the mom and pop gun dealers. Why? Do this criminal element, do these rioters, etc., do they actually go in these family-owned mom and pop gun stores and buy weapons? No, they don't. Because 99.9% of those establishments would be considered quote-unquote Trump country. I have a couple of gun dealers that I do business with. One had to handle an interstate transport for me. And, he's already got his Trump 2024, I'll be back flags up on the wall. I mean, we understand who running these establishments are, and they certainly aren't going to sell weapons to gangbangers. They aren't going to sell weapons to people that are just looting and rioting in the street. So this whole canard, this myth, this lie, this fabrication that he's got to control the gun dealers because they're supplying the weapons that are being... No. Nay. Again, the gun control laws do not stop those kinds of people because they don't go to a gun store and purchase their weapons. Remember, they put all this pressure on the major department stores like Walmart, etc., and now most of these places don't sell any firearms whatsoever. And as the gun violence, black on black crime in places like Chicago gone down, no. Because again, they're not going to Walmart. They're not going to the gun dealer to buy their guns. They're getting them black market on the street out of the back of a dude's trunk of his car. So when he says he's going to go after the gun dealers, he's going after the gun dealers because he knows that's Trump country. Bum. It was Kamala Harris who floated the idea of going after gun dealers, and it was Kamala, thinks she's a Hottie Harris, who said, you may have the right to own a gun, but you don't have the right to ammunition. So we can just simply make sure there's no ammo. Shazam Batman. What are we dealing with right now? You know, I went out my backyard last night. I recently inherited a firearm from my father, a 1950s military issue 22 Supermatic. It's a competition weapon to be used in gun competitions. And it's a 22, and I was having some trouble with it, and it went to a gunsmith. And so last night I went outside to pop off a few rounds. I popped off about 30, 40 rounds and didn't dare spend any more than that. Now, there was a time, you know, you could have bucket loads of 22 ammo in any store, and it wasn't a problem to find. You tried to buy any ammo lately? And of course, we have the gun manufacturers lying to our faces that we're producing it. It was this Trump slowdown when he was president. People stopped buying guns. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we've got, over 1 million new gun owners, and so we're just having a hard time keeping up. Yeah. The government's buying up the supply. I got it. And you can't say anything or they'll put you out of business. And at least, hey, for you, the bottom line is the bottom line, and whether Joe Citizen can get the ammunition or the federal government's taking it, doesn't matter as long as you getting paid. So Camilla thinks she's a hottie. Harris is behind what Joe Biden is putting a face to now, going after the gun dealers, going after the ammo, making sure there's no ammo supply, and then when he once again botches the tree of liberty must be at times watered with the blood of patriots, and he can't get that right. Is that really a shock to us?
Those who say the blood of patriots, and all this stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not watered with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you want to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Now, we saw this during the campaign. So how did this dementia, dithering dillweed get elected? Pretty simple. We already know the answer to it. Now that we're getting some birth to actually talk about the Wuhan lab leak, when do we get to talk about the election leak?
The reason we talk about a red mirage is, in fact, because we believe that on election night, we are going to see Donald Trump in a stronger position than the reality actually is. We are sounding an alarm and saying that this is a very real possibility, that the data is going to show on election night an incredible victory for Donald Trump. That is likely to be what we see when every legitimate vote is tallied and we get to that final day, which will be someday after election day. It will, in fact, show that what happened on election night was exactly that, a mirage. It looked like Donald Trump was in the lead, and he fundamentally was not when every ballot gets counted.
You have a result on election night where it appears that Donald Trump has won, but a result after ballots are counted that show that Joe Biden has actually won.
That's right.
That Axios report came out just a couple of weeks before the election. Now, what they were doing is they were telegraphing two things there. One, they knew that the actual show up to vote was going to be an absolute, off the record charts, landslide for Donald J. Trump. They were conceding that. They knew it. They said the equalizer will be when the ballots get counted. Okay. In other words, when we can shut down polling places and find out how many we short here, and just poof, magically, they appear. And again, Joe Biden told us he had a plan. Don't worry about it. In fact, you don't even need to worry about voting. It's in the bag.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. I don't only need you to get me elected, I need you once I'm elected.
Yup, that's the guy. Hey, that's it for this rant. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. Smack the bell, click the word all to get notification of my next rant.